Hello, it's layperson Lisa with a reflection on the readings for the 6th Sunday in Easter. For the past 2 years, I've had some grass plants growing in my yard, and I thought it was some sort of liriope, so I was just letting it go. But it wasn't growing like a liriope, it wasn't flowering like a liriope, and so I used Google Lens to see what this plant was, what this grass plant was, and it turns out that it was a weed, called nutgrass, which is very invasive, as I saw. And so a week or two ago, I started spraying them, and they were starting to die. And yesterday, I dug up the plants since they were dying and they were kind of unsightly. I figured, hey, I will dig these up so I can make room for new plants. And the intricacy of these roots was ridiculous. Like, they were all kind of, there was like all these like little veins. There was like these little nuts, like tubulars, which I guess that's why it's called nutgrass, because they're like little nuts. And they were also like interwoven with each other. They were interwoven with the things that were growing around it, like other plant roots, pine cones. It was ridiculous. And it made me think how this is what sin can do in our lives. Sometimes we're ignorant. We don't really realize that what we're doing is wrong, that it is against one of God's commandments. Sometimes we can we can just not see. The more that we sin, the less clearly we realize that it's wrong. We kind of become numb to it. And so these roots really made me reflect upon that yesterday as I was digging them up, because it did take me a few hours because there were so many and because they're so intricately wound up. But it made me think of my own spiritual life, like how pride and selfishness can, it's like the root, and it weaves itself into all areas of my life. And so when I my pride is about wanting to be included, wanting to be affirmed. But I don't need that, because Jesus is all that I need. But because of my pride, I do need that. I care about what people think. I care about what people say. And I can become, because of my self-preservation, which is like, okay, I have to protect myself, a self-protection, it can make me selfish. It can make me prideful. And it just made me realize that it wraps around so many areas in my life. And the roots of the nutgrass also made me realize, also help me visualize how all sin affects the world. And so hey, maybe I'm doing something by myself in the privacy of my house that is sinful, but yet it still has ripple effects in the world. But the good thing is, God gives us the Holy Spirit when we are baptized, and we receive that sanctifying grace. We are His children, His beloved children. We have the gifts of the Holy Spirit. We have we are partakers in the divine life. And so when we can really open ourselves up to the Holy Spirit, and to the closer that we grow in God, in relationship with Him, the clearer we see what we're doing is against His commandments. The clearer we see that what we are doing is wrong, and it helps that we can develop this relationship with Jesus through prayer, through sacrifice, through works of charity, because our sin has a ripple effect on the world, but so do our works of charity, or our works of love. They also have a even stronger effect. And so that's why it is so important for myself, especially, to not be selfish, to be a gift of self, because those same roots in that nutgrass that I thought about as far as my sinfulness, that can also be the effect of my gift of self to others, putting God first, because sometimes in our lives we have attachments. Like I have an attachment to to that I'm too attached to what people say or do. But like I'm working on that. Like I'm reading St. John of the Cross, Ascent of Mount Carmel, and he talks about detachment. And the more that I have a deeper conscience of, or awareness of where I have these attachments, the more I can invite the Holy Spirit, tap into that sanctifying grace that we receive during our baptism and is strengthened at our confirmation. And so today's readings are about following God's commandments, living a life of holiness, so that we can live a virtuous life that can help displace those vices and sin in our lives. And so, like for myself, like humility, because really I'm a nobody, right? There's a song, I'm just a nobody trying to tell everybody about somebody who changed my life. And so that's what we're called to be. We're called to glorify God in all that we do. And when I can remember that, then that can help me to live a life of humility, where I don't care or I detach myself from what other people say or do, because I am just focused on God and detached from things of this world. And so when we're detached, we have like that Google lens, the lens of the Holy Spirit, so that we can see God working in our lives, and that when we do fall, we can go to the Sacrament of Reconciliation, which is like that weed spray which kills the sin, which because sin can darken or darken the intellect and weaken the will. But when we go to the Sacrament of Reconciliation, when we tap into that sacramental grace, and we are in a state of sanctifying grace, then we are just washed over by God and his love for us, and that he calls us to be a vessel that we can empty ourselves of us so that we could be filled with him. So what attachments do you have, and what sins are you finding that are interwoven around areas in your life? Bring these to the Sacrament of Reconciliation and allow God to wash over you so that your sanctifying grace may be fully restored.